it's Susan from Stratus, and today we're going to be talking about how to pick the best MBA programs for you. This is a very personal decision. You shouldn't just be looking at US News and World Reports or the Financial Times for their rankings. I'm going to walk you through a framework of 7 C's that will help you to find your own top 10 list. So what are those 7 C's? We're going to start with career, talk about competitiveness, curriculum, clubs, culture, communication, and perhaps finally, but maybe most importantly, cost. So let's get started. The first thing that you should think about when you are putting together your list of the best business schools for you is, what are your career goals? Where do you want this degree to take you? You really need to know where you're trying to go before you figure out the best way to get there. Now, you want to have both a short-term career goal and a long-term career goal. From those, you can work backwards into what are the areas you need to develop during business school that are going to put you on a path to achieve these goals. Drilling down for a minute on that short-term goal, you want it to include the industry, the function, and the geography in which you want to work. And ideally, you want to have 2, possibly 3 target companies. Your long-term goal or aspiration can be a little bit more broad, but you want to know who you want to be working with, what type of role you want to play, and what impact you want to make on the problem area that you would wish to address. So next up, competitiveness. Getting into a top business school, especially the M7, is super competitive. Now, an M7 isn't for everyone, and it might not get you where you want to go. So things that you need to think about when you consider your competitiveness are your stats, that being your GMAT or GRE and your GPA. Look at the class profiles for the schools that are in your consideration set and see where you stack up with respect to their averages and their ranges. Some schools will present an 80% range, others will give you a 100% range of the lowest GPA overall to the highest on a 4.0 scale. Also think about your work experience. On average, people starting in the very top 25, top 50 schools have about 4 or 5 years of work experience. Schools are going to be looking at not only how many years of work experience you have, but what role have you played? What company or companies have you worked for? What progress have you made over that time? Were you promoted earlier than others? Have you continued to learn and grow in the different roles you've played over your career to date? If you are from an overrepresented demographic or country, you probably want to bring in stats that are solidly above the averages of the schools that are in your consideration set. If you happen to be of an identity that is underrepresented in business school, whether that's an ethnic minority, an underrepresented industry or function, the schools might be a little bit more forgiving. But do keep in mind that the overall assessment is holistic. Next up is curriculum. You are going to business school to learn. If you've worked backwards from your career goals into your areas for development, the next thing you need to do is look at what's the coursework that you need to pursue in order to achieve your goals. Many schools have a core curriculum. Some have a core curriculum that everyone must take, that being HBS. It's called the RC or required curriculum. Other schools have more flexibility in the core, and you can take different levels, say, of accounting or quantitative subjects like finance or statistics, depending on what your background is. And on the opposite end, in terms of core curriculum, is Booth, which has precisely 1 required class for your entire MBA. So that's kind of the baseline. All of the schools are going to have electives. What are the electives that are going to set you up to be ready to land a job in the industry and function and even geography you want to be in? Perhaps you need to pursue a certificate or major in the healthcare space. Perhaps you need a concentration in finance. Take a look at what electives there are and how those line up with your areas for development. Finally, when considering curriculum, think about how you learn best. Business schools teach in a variety of formats. Some are purely case-based, like Harvard and Darden. Others use a mix of teaching styles, case, lecture, and experiential learning. What is your best way of learning? Take a look into these resources so you know which schools are going to be best for you. The next C that we're going to talk about is clubs. And when I say clubs, I mean not just the clubs, but conferences, career treks, speaker series, competitions, all sorts of different things that are kind of outside the formal classroom learning. These are a really important component of your learning and development during business school. Now, you don't want to just focus on the career-based clubs like the consulting club or the finance club or the marketing club. There are really three types of clubs. There are the professional clubs, like I've just mentioned, but there are also identity clubs. And those might be the Women in Business Club or the European Business Students Association or faith-based clubs. These are also a great way for you to meet people who share your identity and flex your leadership skills if that's something you want to be focusing on. And the final set of clubs or group of clubs are really the fun clubs. Things like the wine club or the improv club or the tennis club. Again, these are great ways to meet people who share an interest with you. You may never cross paths with them in the classroom, yet if you want to go hiking on the weekend, you want to be hanging out with these people. Clubs are a great way to test your classroom learning, get prepared to recruit for that career that you want to pursue, build relationships, and perhaps most importantly, have fun. So dig into those clubs. Many schools will have club pages on their website. Check out what is available for each of the schools you're considering. We've talked about competitiveness. We've talked about curriculum and clubs. Now we're going to talk about culture. Culture is really important because you're going to spend 2 years probably with the people in your MBA program. And really, this is not just a 2-year decision. This is a 20, 30, or 40-year decision. You want to be in a community with people who you feel comfortable around, where you can really truly be yourself. So you want to find your people. Take a look at each school's mission and values and see what resonates most with you. Are you someone who wants to be in khakis and loafers and a button-down shirt? Or are you more chill and would rather wear flip-flops and board shorts to class? Schools have a mix. Find the one or ones that are right for you. Communication is all about learning about the 5 C's that we have talked about so far: career, competitiveness, curriculum, clubs, and culture. Nearly every business school has student ambassadors who are willing to talk to students. So that's a great way to drill down into the details of what initiatives exist with a particular club. What might you learn in pursuing a particular elective? But before you dig into those details, start with just going on the school website, following the school on social media. That will give you insight into what they celebrate beyond what's just in the marketing materials. Attend coffee chats, go to tour events if they're visiting your city. And finally, if you have a chance, there's nothing that beats being on campus and being able to use all of your senses to observe what that culture is like. Now, I won't be the first one to tell you that going to business school is not an insignificant financial undertaking. These programs will cost you order of magnitude close to $200,000 US all in for 2 years. Plus, you're likely giving up a solid salary that you have today. So this is probably the biggest investment you will make other than buying a home. Or if you perform really well, maybe a yacht at some point in your future. All that to say, don't overlook the cost of attending business school. Now, if scholarship is important to you, look at schools where your stats and your connection with that school put you in a really good place that the school is going to want to have you as part of their community. If you're willing to pay full price, fantastic. Make sure you have a plan for how you're going to pay back any loans that you might need to take out. But cost is an important factor. Every year we work with people who maybe get into a higher ranked program, but opt for one that's lower in the US News rankings because that school gave them a really big scholarship. And at the end of the day, either one of those schools would allow them to achieve their goals, meet their needs around curriculum, and was a culture that they were excited about being part of. So keep in mind, this is one piece of the trajectory towards your career that's going to last for 30, 40, maybe more years. It's a very personal and nuanced decision. Think about this framework, and if you have questions, reach out to Stratus. We're glad to talk to you about what programs will be best for you.